The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, its golden dunes shimmering under the dying light of the sun. A lone traveler, a merchant dervish, trudged onward with his donkey, his robes dusted with the remnants of his arduous journey. His wares spices, silks, and handcrafted trinkets jingled softly with each step of his tired companion. For days he had traveled across this vast, desolate expanse, trading his goods in towns and villages scattered like oases in the arid sea. Tonight, however, he sought no business. The merchant's thoughts were consumed by the promise of rest, and his heart yearned for the warmth and camaraderie of a Sufi house, a refuge where wandering souls like his could find shelter, food, and a slice of humanity. As the first stars began to twinkle in the indigo sky, the merchant spotted the outline of a settlement on the horizon. The town was small and unassuming, its clay walls blending seamlessly with the surrounding sands. A minaret rose above the buildings, its silhouette pointing skyward like a finger beckoning travelers to the divine. The merchant entered the town with relief and purpose. The streets were quiet, their only inhabitants a stray cat darting between alleys and the faint echoes of distant laughter. He inquired about a Sufi house and was soon directed to a modest structure near the town's edge. Its wooden door creaked open to reveal the warm glow of all lamps and the low murmur of voices. The merchant's first act upon arrival was to tend to his donkey, the silent companion who had borne his burdens without complaint. He led the animal to the stables, ensuring it had plenty of water and a generous helping of hay. The stable boy, a wiry lad no older than 12, watched with curiosity as the merchant worked. "Take good care of him," the merchant said, pressing a coin into the boy's hand. "He has carried me far today." The boy nodded, clutching the coin tightly. "I will, sir. You can count on me." With his mind eased, the merchant entered the Sufi house. The atmosphere inside was lively yet serene. Men of various ages sat cross-legged on rugs, sharing stories, reciting poetry, and sipping tea. The air was fragrant with the scent of incense, and the walls were adorned with verses from the Koran. The dervishes welcomed the merchant with open arms. They bowed to him in the traditional manner, their smiles warm and inviting. To the merchant, their hospitality felt genuine, and he quickly felt at home among them. Unbeknownst to the merchant, the dervishes at the Sufi house were not the noble, spiritual seekers they appeared to be. Most of them were impoverished laborers who had turned to the Sufi lifestyle out of necessity rather than devotion. Hunger and desperation had hardened their hearts, making them prone to sin despite their outward piety. When word spread that the new arrival had a donkey laden with goods, the dervishes saw an opportunity. That night, while the merchant rested in the main hall, a small group of men slipped into the stables. The stable boy, fearful and outnumbered, watched helplessly as they sold the donkey to a departing traveler. The money exchanged hands quickly, and the dervishes wasted no time putting it to use. They purchased food, oil, lamps, and other luxuries they had long gone without. The prospect of a feast lit a fire of excitement among them. The meal that night was a lavish affair by the Sufi house's usual standards. Plates overflowed with roasted meats, fragrant rice, and sweet pastries. The merchant, oblivious to the source of their newfound abundance, was touched by their generosity. "You honor me greatly," he said, raising his cup in gratitude. May your kindness return to you tenfold. The dervishes exchange knowing glances, their smiles tinged with mischief. They had no regrets about their actions. To them, the feast was a necessary indulgence after weeks of deprivation. As the meal ended, the Sama began. The dervishes formed a circle, their hands raised to the heavens as they began to chant. The rhythms of the drums quickened, and the men started to whirl, their robes billowing like the petals of a blooming flower. Gone is the ass, gone is the ass. The musicians sang, their voices rising in unison. The merchant, carried away by the energy of the gathering, joyed and enthusiastically. He sang louder than the rest, his voice filled with joy and reverence. To him, the words were merely part of the mystical celebration. The Sama continued late into the night, the air thick with dust and the fervor of spiritual ecstasy. By the time the gathering dispersed, the merchant felt a profound sense of belonging. He had never felt so alive, so connected to something greater than himself. With the first light of dawn, the merchant prepared to resume his journey. He gathered his belongings and made his way to the stables, eager to reunite with his trusty donkey. But the animal was nowhere to be found. "Where is he?" the merchant asked the stable boy, his voice tinged with concern. The boy hesitated, his eyes darting nervously. I don't know, sir." The merchant's concern quickly turned to anger. He grabbed the boy by the collar. "What do you mean you don't know? I left him in your care." Terrified, the boy blurted out the truth. "The dervishes took him. They sold him and used the money for the feast. I tried to stop them, but they threatened me. I thought you knew." The merchant's heart sank. He staggered backward, his mind reeling from the betrayal. They sang about it, he whispered, the realization dawning on him. All night they sang, "Gone is the ass," and I joined them. The stable boy nodded. "You sang louder than anyone. I thought you had given them permission." The merchant felt a wave of shame and anger. He had been so eager to fit in, so swept up in the dervish's fervor, that he had failed to see the truth. The merchant returned to the Sufi house, but the men were gone, scattered to the winds like the smoke of the previous night's fires. He stood in the empty hall, his anger slowly giving way to introspection. He had trusted strangers without question, blinded by their outward displays of piety. Worse, he had allowed his desire for acceptance to cloud his judgment. As he left the town, the merchant resolved to change. He would no longer seek validation from others, nor would he imitate their actions without understanding their motives. True spirituality, he realized, was not about following the crowd, but about staying true to one's own values and principles. The desert stretched before him, vast and unyielding, but as he walked, a sense of peace began to settle in his heart. The loss of his donkey was painful, but the lesson it brought was invaluable. The stars above seemed to whisper, a promise. Every loss carries the seed of a lesson, and every lesson a chance for renewal. Please like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel, Musics.